I did not lose my money. I lost the keys. My son found them and called it love. My name is Elena Warren. In this house, doors open with stories. When he tried to hold my money, the first doll clicked. A notice appeared. Matryoshka activated. Layer 1. Year 9, blue soup. He thought passwords would save me. He did not know memory would measure him. My name is Elena Warren. I am 68 years old, right-handed, and I bake lemon cake on days when memory needs sugar to be carried. I live in a small house where the morning light arrives in polite stripes through the blinds, and the cat believes she owns every chair. I have one son, Daniel, who was born with eyes that said I will figure it out before his mouth could form the words. And I have a set of wooden dolls that live in the drawer everyone mistakes for cutlery. You already know the phone told me no. I will not make a meal out of a single word, but denied as a flavor that lingers. I tried my face, my code, the careful tap of a fingertip that has dialed so many numbers it could do it in the dark. The same answer. I stood in my kitchen like a witness in my own life and dialed Daniel. He answered with relief, which is the sound control makes when it believes it has saved someone. It is safer this way, Mom, he said. Lou limit, new card. I can monitor transfers. You said a strange number called you last Thursday. They target people like you. People like me. He meant widow without saying it. He meant older. He meant vulnerable. Though he tried to tuck that word behind others that feel softer in the mouth. He spoke about insurance and exposure and best practices. He had charts in his tone. He loves me, and I do not doubt it. Daniel, I said, tell me the limits. He listed ceilings. He described a field where the fence was more concept than wood. He promised we could review in a month. I listened the way you listened to a song that once comforted you, and now makes you aware of a seam you had not noticed in the fabric. I thanked him. I told him to come for dinner at 6. We both hung up feeling correct and a little cold. Then I opened the drawer. The dolls are not expensive. I bought them at a thrift store on a Tuesday, when I was not looking for anything except a reason to leave the house, after the doctor used my husband's absence in a sentence as if absence were a piece of furniture. The dolls smell like cedar in schoolrooms. Each one fits into another, smaller and smaller, until the last is the size of a knuckle. They are painted with faces that are almost, but not quite, laughing. 18 months ago, when grief made me practical, I sat at this table with a woman named Teresa, from a fiduciary service that specializes in listening to older women who are not ready to become invisible. She asked me what I feared. Not thieves, not scams. I feared the quiet ways care becomes control. So we built something no one at the bank had a box for. We called it a matryoshka. Not because of Russia or novelty, but because it honored the idea that value is layered, and the smallest thing can hold the heart of the matter. We did not hide money. We hid meaning. If anyone attempted unilateral control over my accounts without a documented capacity review, the bank would trigger the first layer. No funds would move until a narrative key was offered. A true memory, told by the would-be guardian, verifying intimacy over authority. This is how it worked. The bank retained a private ledger with layer prompts attached to dates that mattered in our family. If my son wanted to protect, he would first have to remember. Not numbers. Us. He would receive a call with a statement that sounded like bureaucracy in a dress code, followed by a prompt that did not. If his telling matched mine within a circle of truth we had already drawn, a small permission would open, not to him alone, but to us both, with dual keys. If he could not remember, the layer would hold. Which brings me to the blue soup. When Daniel was 9, we had a winter of bills and broken things. The stove kept pretending to be fine. The car forgot how to start on Tuesdays. Our neighbor, Mrs. Ainsley, took a fall, and suddenly I was cooking for her too, because love is hungry work. I stretched dinners the way women do. Lentils, onions, water, prayer. I dyed the soup with red cabbage because color convinces the body it is feasting. The pot turned blue like a mistake that learned how to be beautiful. Daniel called it wizard food and asked for seconds. We took 2 bowls to Mrs. Ainsley, and she cried a little because sometimes gratitude leaks. We ate late and slept honest. That night is layer 1. I did not know yet if Daniel would be asked for it. I only knew the bank had placed a note on my profile that could look like a typo to anyone not searching for the door it opened. So I placed the smallest doll next to my phone and dialed the number on the paper letter. The one that inks your fingers. A woman answered, who sounded exactly like concentration. "Mrs. Warren," she said. "There were permission changes enacted on your account at 7:12 a.m. by a device recently associated with your household, but not with your personal profile. The Matryoshka protocol is in effect. Do you wish to initiate layer 1 now, or at a scheduled time with the involved party present?" The involved party. I imagined Daniel at his desk, believing he had tugged a net over the sea and saved me from drowning. My heart did not harden. It stood in the doorway and decided to be kind and immovable at the same time. 6 o'clock, I said. "When my son is here, we will tell a story together." "Very good," she said, as if I had passed a small exam in a class that mattered. I made tea. I opened the window a little. The house adjusted itself around the idea that the evening would not be ordinary. I baked the lemon cake, because ritual is a raft. And then I did something that made the rest possible. I introduced myself to myself out loud. "My name is Elena," I said to the room. "I do not disappear in the name of safety." The cat approved by doing something indecent to a patch of sunlight. I set the table for 2. Knife, fork, the heavy plates that do not apologize when you set them down. The smallest doll watched me from beside the salt as if pretending not to. At 6, Daniel arrived with a bag of salad and a face that wanted to be praised for its responsibility. He kissed my cheek and looked at the cake like a boy again. We ate first, because food before conversations that might bruise is a policy I put above the fridge next to the list of emergency numbers. He told me about work and a podcast about longevity that has strong opinions about olive oil. I told him the cat has learned how to open the bathroom cabinet and commits minor crimes. When the plates were pushed back, and the cake was 2 perfect crescents of permission, I placed the first doll in the center of the table. "What is this?" he asked, smiling. "A bank," I said. He laughed, then looked at me, then at the doll again, the way you look at a field that might contain a hole you cannot see. "Mom, there is a protocol on my account," I said gently. "It activates when someone tries to help me without my consent. It is called Matryoshka. We are at the first layer." His face closed its shutters. "I'm trying to protect you." "I know," I said. "So tell me about the blue soup." Silence makes dust visible. He blinked. "The what?" "The year you were 9, I said. And I kept my voice the way you hold a small bird. You let it know your hands are not a sky that will drop it. Winter. The stove that lied. Mrs. Ainsley's fall. The pot." He frowned, then squinted toward the left like he always has when he searches the shelves of his mind. I watched the tightness in his shoulders follow the line of the blinds and break in one place. "You dyed it," he said slowly. "You used cabbage. It turned blue. I hated it and then I loved it." "And then?" I asked. "We took bowls to Mrs. Ainsley in those chipped mugs with the church logo I used as rockets when you were not looking." She cried and pretended she was cutting onions. I asked for seconds because there was a second to ask for. He looked up. His eyes were not a child's, but they were a decent man's trying to keep up with his fear. "Is that layer 1? "It is," I said, and I felt the ledger in the air shift the way the house shifts when the heater comes on. The phone on the table, which I had placed screen down like a face at prayer, hummed. A text from the bank. Narrative key accepted. Layer 1 opened. Dual control restoration available. Next review window in 7 days. Daniel read it. His mouth made a shape I recognized from when he was 5, and realized the teacher was wrong about how to spell a difficult word. He was not angry. He was unseated. This is manipulative, he said, but he did not believe it. This is intimate, I answered. If you want to hold my life, hold the parts that are not numbers. He looked away, then back, then down at his hands, which are my father's hands, except that my father did not live long enough to worry like this.
Mom.
There are people who will try to take from you. Yes, I said. There are also people who will take the shape of protection and use it to make me small. I will not help them. He did not apologize. I did not demand it. The ledger had accepted the story, and permission bloomed in a quiet line neither of us could see but both could feel. I pressed the doll open gently. Inside, the second doll smiled with that same almost laugh. Layer 2? He asked, half fearful, half curious. Not tonight, I said. We will let truth breathe between courses. We cleared the plates together. He took the trash out and lingered outside a little too long like men do, when they want the night to explain them to themselves. I wrapped a slice of cake for him, and wrote on the bag with a marker. For the drive. Nothing was taken. Only moved. When he left, I sat back down at the table and listened to the way silence is not empty, but full of things that used to be loud. The phone buzzed again, this time with a voicemail transcript icon. The bank's community liaison. A scheduled call tomorrow to outline dual control options and confirm that Layer 1 would remain open for 7 days before evaluation. I smiled because 7 days is the biblical number for letting things become themselves. I put the smallest doll in my pocket. It felt like a stone you pick up from a river and carry for a mile for no reason you can explain, other than that it remembers water better than you do. Before bed, I studied my face in the mirror, the way you study a map before a road that might be more beautiful than safe. I said my name again, not because I forgot it, but because names are bridges. Elena. I brushed my teeth. I set the phone on the charger. I told the house goodnight like I do, because I do not know which rooms need to be reminded they are not alone. And then, because I refuse to let fear dictate what grows in me, I took out a small notebook with a blue cover and wrote a question at the top of a clean page. What is money, if it is also memory? Under it, I wrote the first answer that arrived. It is the part of love that can buy salt, light, and a bus ticket. If we remember who we are. I slept. If stories like this help you hold your boundaries without hardening your heart, you can stay with me here. Subscribe so you do not miss the next layer when it opens. We did not clear the table right away. The plates sat like moons cooling after a small eclipse. The first doll rested in the center between us. Open, calm, a circle of wood and paint that had decided not to be a secret. Tell me, I said. Tell me the story in your words. Daniel looked at the doll as if it might blink. He pressed his palms flat on the table the way he used to do before spelling tests, as if the wood could lend him answers through his skin. It began with the phone calls, he said. 3 this month. The kind that start with a pleasant hello and end with questions that do not belong to strangers. Then the articles. Everyone says scams are getting smarter than love. I kept picturing you at the store, buying groceries, and a number you do not know finds you at the checkout, and something slips. 2 minutes. One wrong link. Everything gone. He did not dramatize it. He did not need to. Fear is believable without makeup. You could have called me, I said. I did, he answered softly. But not before I called the bank, because I wanted to fix the leak before I told you there was water. We were quiet long enough to hear the clock count what it could not explain. He took a breath that tried to open a stuck window. There's also the mortgage, he said. Ours. We want to move to a place with more light for the baby. We have savings, but every month feels like a hallway that narrows. When I saw those calls on your phone log, I thought, I cannot lose you, and also watch you lose what gives you room to breathe. I told myself control was care. I told myself I would return everything once the threat had passed. I used the word temporary, the way people use perfume, to make the air easier. He watched me as if I might ring like a glass. I did not have to. The house rang enough. Old houses carry echoes in their beams. You can hear the past practicing for the present if you sit still. I believe you, I said. I believe your fear was large and your love tried to harness it. He nodded. A small nod. The kind you do when someone names the thing that has been walking next to you for weeks. But listen, I added, and I set my voice on the table the way you set a bowl so it cannot roll. If you protect me with control, I vanish a little. If I let you, I help you believe vanishing is love. We teach each other the rules of our family in the small ways. I would rather we learn a better rule while we still have time. He looked at the doll again. Then, at my hands. I did not know you had this, he said, almost a whisper. The layers. The prompts. I did not know you had instructions for me. I do not have instructions for you, I said. I have a mirror. If you want my keys, bring back our life. Not in money, in details. He smiled without finding joy in it. That sounds like you, he said, hard and kind in the same sentence. We stood to clear the plates. The small acts of stacking and rinsing always healed something in me that cannot be healed with speeches. He washed, I dried. We worked shoulder to shoulder like people who know how to be on the same side even when they are not sure which direction the side is facing. The cat jumped to the counter as if to offer management and was fired with a glance. Sit, I said, after the dishes. We returned to the table. I placed my phone face up, not to invite interruption, but to keep truth in the light. There is a liaison at the branch who knows our protocol. We can call now, on speaker, not to accuse you, to add light, and to ask what layer 2 requires. He swallowed. The swallow looked like a man carrying something heavy but chosen. Call, he said. I dialed. It rang twice. A voice I recognized answered. Calm. Precise. The kind of voice that can carry a stack of papers across a river without losing a single sheet. I introduced us. I told her layer 1 had opened. I did not explain the blue soup. You never explain the poetry of your life to strangers. You simply stand inside it and speak clearly. We set the phone between us. I listened to the speech I have learned to love. The cadence of things being confirmed. The language that says this happened and then that. And here is what it means. Then the sentence we needed. A new note appeared. I read aloud, so the words would belong to my mouth and his ears together. Community liaison log. External control attempt acknowledged. Matryoshka remains in effect. Layer 2 will require shared recollection of the umbrella night. I let the words sit. I did not rush them to the door. The umbrella night. We both knew it without asking. We had not said those words in years, but they had lived in the closet of our house like the umbrella itself, waiting for a sky that justifies it. I remember, Daniel said. So do I answered. The liaison offered next steps with the gentleness of someone who sees more families than she can count, but still believes each one is singular. She explained dual control in simple terms. 2 keys. 1 door. No surprise changes. A review window. Weekly check-ins that are not about numbers, but about clarity. She reminded us that layer 2 did not open money. It opened understanding that could make money safe to touch again. We ended the call. We did not thank her too much. Sometimes gratitude needs to be brief to stay honest. The umbrella night, he repeated. He ran a hand over his hair the way he used to after soccer, when he needed to feel order against his scalp. I was 12. 12, I said. It was the night the bus did not come, he said. It rained like a sentence that refuses a period. You worked late at the store. The manager forgot to lock the back door early, and you had to stay until he remembered how responsibility works. I stood at the stop and counted headlights, and every pair of lights was hope, and every pair that passed was a lesson. I did not interrupt. I would have forgotten a small important detail if I had. I had no umbrella, he continued. I had a jacket that pretended to be waterproof. It was not. A man stopped and asked if I wanted a ride and used the tone that makes you feel you are already in the car. I said no. I stood there until the sky felt like a hand. Then I saw you. You were crossing the parking lot with two things that did not belong to the store. An umbrella with daisies, and a thermos you never use. You crossed the street without waiting for the light. You called my name as if the rain could hear too, and then we stood under the daisies, and you put the thermos in my hands and said, "Sip. It is lemon soup. It is not real soup. It is hot water with a slice. It will convince your body we are safe, until we are safe." He exhaled. We walked home like that, sharing the umbrella, trading the thermos back and forth, passing safety and sips. He looked at me. The man looked out through the boy. "Layer 2? Layer 2, I said. The doll on the table did not open. Not yet. The protocol would compare our two tellings. It would measure the shape. Not with machines. With the outline Teresa and I had drawn long ago. The humanness of the details. The way truth has scuffs. In the morning we would receive the decision. Meanwhile, we had the night. I stood and fetched the old umbrella from the front closet. The daisies had faded to a color that only remembers brightness. I set it near the door, not as a prop, but as a doorbell for the past. Daniel watched me move through the house that made him. "I am not the enemy," he said. He said it carefully, unsure where it would land. "I know," I said. "But fear is, sometimes. And fear can be very persuasive if someone it loves is small enough to carry." He looked down, his shoulders lowered a fraction. Relief looks like a coat sliding off a hook. "Do you remember the thermos?" I asked. He laughed, small and real. "It still lives in the back of the cupboard that swallows things." "It does," I said. "I keep it next to the candle I never light. I like objects that are ready." He became serious again. "I should have asked you. Before I changed the settings. I should have said the whole thing out loud. Mom, I am afraid. The world is a crowded train station and I do not want to lose sight of you." That would have opened more than any app, I said. The door inside my chest. The trust you needed before the trust the bank administers. He nodded. His eyes brightened and then practiced not brightening. He is good at being composed. He is less good at letting compassion land on his own face. We talked a while longer, not about policy, about mornings and weather and the ways love grows lopsided when it is trying too hard to be a fence and forgets to be a garden. He told me how he checks the baby at night, even when the baby is asleep, just to confirm the air still works. I told him how I sometimes wake at 3 and hold both wrists because they feel like the handles of suitcases I'm afraid I forgot to pack. When he rose to go, he hesitated at the door. He looked at the umbrella as if it might insist on a blessing. "I will not make changes without you again," he said. "I will not ignore the shape of your fear," I said. "We will open layers together." He left with a slice of cake, and a sentence we had not said out loud, but had placed between us like a bridge. We are on the same side, even when we disagree about which direction safety faces. After he was gone, the house grew quiet in a way that is not empty. The kind of quiet that feels like a teacher waiting for the lesson to be set back. I made hot water and added a slice of lemon in honor of the thermos. I stood by the front window and watched the street become its night shape. I checked my phone once. No new notices. Leia too would not answer at bedtime, because the bank learned that evenings make people dramatic. Morning is better for decisions. I placed the phone on the table next to the doll and the envelope, like friends who know how to share a bench. Before sleep, I wrote in the blue notebook. Money is a script we keep editing. I will not let fear hold the pen. I underlined it twice, not because I was unsure, but because underlines can keep a sentence standing when night leans too hard. I slept, and this time I dreamed of rain that did not reach the skin. We walked home under a sky that had agreed to be a roof. The daisies on the umbrella were brighter than the real past. Dreams are generous that way. Morning would come with its own weather and its own paper. Leia too would say yes or no. Either way, we would keep building the kind of door that opens to us both. If this kind of gentle boundary work helps you breathe, stay with me here. Subscribe so you do not miss what happens when Leia 2 answers in the morning. Morning does not ask permission to begin. It simply lifts the room from underneath until the furniture remembers its weight. I woke with the sense that something had been decided while I slept. The way rain decides the shape of a street, without asking the street for a vote. The house had its quiet ready. The cat stretched like a piece of string being measured and then forgot what for. I walked to the kitchen and put water to warm. Lemon, already halved, waited by the knife as if last night had left a bookmark in the day. The first doll sat on the table, open and certain. The second inside her looking up with that almost laugh. I touched the paint with one finger, briefly. The way you touch the shoulder of someone who worked through the night while you were dreaming. To say, I noticed. The phone vibrated once, just once. Not the persistence of trouble, the courtesy of an answer. I looked. I read. I set the screen face up so that light could speak to light. New notice, I said aloud, so the words would belong to my mouth, and not only my eyes. Layer 2 verified. Dual control now active. Review window, 7 days. Suggested prompt for next opening, year 12, the postage stamp money. I did not smile right away. Sometimes joy arrives shy. It needs to see whether the room will make space. I poured the hot water. I added the lemon. I let its thin scent stand up from the cup and find the corners. The word verified set itself on the table like a new small plate, ready to hold something warm. Dual control. 2 keys. 1 door. I repeated it softly the way you repeat a prayer you do not want to bruise by saying too loud. It sounded like air returning to a room that had been careful with itself for too long. Daniel texted at almost the same time as the notice, as if fear and relief had learned to walk together. Morning. Did you get anything? Yes, I wrote. Layer 2 opened. We have dual control for a week. There is a next prompt. Do you remember the postage stamp money? The dots on my screen appeared and vanished twice, rehearsing. Then his words. I think so. The afternoon with the little book? The one where we taped stamps inside like treasure? Call me when you have tea. I called while the cup still steamed. He answered with the voice of someone who slept, woke, and tried to choose a better sentence than yesterday to begin today. Layer 2, he said, as if the phrase itself could carry an apology without needing the word. How does it feel? Like a door that opens to both of us, I said. Not wide. Wide is not safe. Wide is not the point. Enough to walk through without bending my head. He exhaled in a way that made his relief sound honest instead of theatrical. Thank you, he said. You are not thanking me, I answered. You are thanking the part of you that remembered the umbrella and did not try to make the rain into proof. He let that land. He is learning to let sentences do their work without helping them too much. The next prompt, he said, gentler. Postage stamps. We can meet at noon, I said, at the branch. The liaison suggested we do one of these on neutral ground. I think that is wise. A kitchen knows our habits too well. A bank knows too little. Between them, a room might be shaped like truth. He laughed a little. The first laugh in 2 days that did not sound like a man asking permission from his own jaw. "Noon," he said. "I will be there." After the call, I stood in front of the hallway mirror and watched my morning face arrive. The mirror is old. It ripples the edges like a pond that remembers a thrown stone. Sometimes I prefer it to the clean truth of new glass. The pond forgives a little. I said my name as if we were meeting again and wanted to be sure. "Elena." I put on the cardigan with the soft elbows. I put the smallest doll in my pocket. I placed the umbrella by the door, though the sky had promised not to test us. Rituals are not for weather. They are for posture. I wrote a sentence in the blue notebook before leaving. A decision made in quiet is not less real. It is often more durable. At the branch, noon is a time when the day pretends to be unbusy and is secretly making new lists. The room smelled like paper that plans to be important. The chairs were upholstered in a color that refuses to commit to a name. The liaison met us at the small table near the window that faces the parking lot where people practice their small comedies. The reverse that tries to be graceful. The door that will not accept the first hug. She shook our hands with equal temperature. "Layer 2 is open," she said, not as an announcement, but as a weather report we already felt against our faces. Dual control is in place. That means no single change can be made without both approvals. The system will ask you separately for a yes. It will ask in language you both can understand. If either says no, the door stays closed. If both say yes, the door opens enough for the agreed action, and then becomes a door again. Doors are allowed to rest. I liked the way she described it, as if doors have lives and deserve gentleness. She reviewed the review window. 7 days to live inside the shape we had chosen, then a check-in. Not to remove it, but to see what it taught. She told us that families who use the Matryoshka protocol often discover that money becomes less loud when memory is allowed to speak. I believe her. Loud is sometimes only the echo of what has not been named. Daniel asked practical questions, with the humility of someone who does not want to break what is helping. Notifications. Daily limits during the window. A small emergency key that opens only for hospital admissions, and a second key that opens only for the mortgage, if a date approaches faster than consent can be gathered. The liaison answered, without making his worry feel like a misdemeanor. "Layer 3, she said at last, turning her folder so that its clipped pages faced us like a patient map. "Year 12, the postage stamp money." We nodded in the same second without meaning to. That pleased me. It is good when bodies remember together. Daniel looked at me. "Do you want to tell it?" he said. "Or do you want me to begin and risk getting the details almost right?" "I will start," I said. "You will correct me where I made the story too kind." He smiled, and the smile remembered he is my son. We did not speak right away. We let the air become a chair for the story to sit in. Then I began. Year 12 was the year the car forgot how to pretend. It started only in the neighbor's imagination. I took the bus to the store, and the bud vase broke at the register, and I watched the flowers be rearranged into a smaller hope. I had a small book with black pages. I kept it behind the cookbooks, because we had decided not to need it, and then we needed it. I called it the tax of a future kindness. I would write a date at the top of a page, and underneath I would tape a stamp. 1. Just 1. If we had more, I would add more. If we had none, I would draw a box and put a small dot inside to say, empty is still something. You found me doing it one afternoon, when the light made the kitchen honest. You asked what it was for. I said, when a long letter is needed, a stamp will not stop it from being sent. Daniel rested his elbows on the table, then removed them with bank manners. I remember the little book, he said. It felt heavy even when it was almost empty. You said weight is not only what things weigh. I peeled the back off a stamp and stuck it crooked. You did not fix it. You said crooked stamps are a kind of truth. The liaison's pen did not move. I appreciated that. Sometimes note-taking feels like someone collecting your rain, and you want it to fall where it falls. We were saving for a trip that never happened, I said. Not far. Just the sea. To watch you run directly into a horizon and come back with the horizon on your knees. Every time we could, we added stamps. Then the day came, when Mrs. Ainsley's sister called from a town I had never heard, and said she was dying. Not dramatic. Plain dying, like laundry. She asked if Mrs. Ainsley could come. There was no money for that kind of asking. Daniel's eyes found the window. Not to escape. To borrow distance for a moment. You took the book to the post office, he said. You showed the clerk the pages. They were black as a small night with tiny squares of moon. You said, "How many letters is this?" He counted. You paid the difference that pages cannot be expected to cover. We mailed 10 envelopes. Each had a photograph of a place Mrs. Ainsley loved and had not visited in a long time. The sea. A field of apples. The church that burned and then was rebuilt with the windows remembering the fire on purpose. I had forgotten that last image. He handed it back to me and I held it with both hands. The postage stamp money, I said. Not money at all. Wait. Promise. Proof that small things make distance crossable. The liaison leaned forward a little, not to interrupt, but as if to let the story hear that she had heard it. Layer 3 wants the same thing Layer 1 wanted, she said softly. A shared shape. Not perfect. Human. It wants the kitchen light. It wants the weight of the little book in a 12-year-old's hands. It wants the crooked stamp. She asked permission to note that the story had been told. We nodded. She marked a single line on a page. The pen did not scratch. It behaved. She explained the next step. The system would compare our tellings with the outline we had drawn months ago in her conference room, when grief was new, and I was brave in the way people are when they have not yet fallen asleep, after the kind of day that introduces you to all your future versions. If the outline matched, Layer 3 would open a window. Not to withdraw. To arrange. We could attach an account for groceries to dual control with wider elbow room. We could unlink 2 automatic payments that had grown too large for their work, and replace them with smaller ones that actually do what they say. Nothing grand. Nothing a movie would notice. Just air made available where the house knew it needed air. Daniel thanked her without bowing too low. I thanked her without making it look like she had saved us. She had not. She had honored what we had already saved. We walked outside. Noon had become afternoon without announcing it. The packing lot acted like itself. A child carried a paper crown carefully. Because care is how imaginary things stay real. Daniel stood near the door and looked at me as if the day were a lesson he wanted to get a good grade on. I have to tell you something, he said. He said it not like a confession, but like a man emptying a pocket so that a walk can be longer. Tell me, I said. We are fine, he said first, and then practiced truth by not stopping there. But I am not fine. I have been trying to be everyone's gate. Mortgage, work, the baby, the news. I check locks instead of kissing. I stay up reading about scams until the moon finds me and asks if I am going to bed or moving in with fear. Yesterday, when I changed your settings, I felt powerful for 1 hour, and then ashamed for 12. I did not comfort too quickly. Comfort is a solvent if poured too early. It makes edges disappear that should teach us something before they soften. I do not need you to be a gate, I said. I need you to be a sun. Gates are for property. Suns are for walking beside. Let the locks be locks. Let the bank be a bank. Let your fear tell you what it loves. Then let it rest. He nodded. There was relief and also grief in the nod. like someone returning a tool they have been carrying too long and realizing their hands have taken its shape. "I will call you tonight," he said. "We will wait for the notice. If layer 3 opens, we will decide the groceries and the 2 payments. We will keep the door ajar." "We will," I said. He went to his car. I watched him reverse with the choreography of someone who wants to be courteous to what he cannot see. He drove away into the ordinary afternoon. I stood for a minute longer and let what the day had said to me settle into place where it would be easy to reach later. At home, I put the smallest doll back into the first and left the pair open. I brewed more lemon. I sat at the table where decisions behave better than in chairs. I wrote in the blue notebook, "Memory is a currency that cannot be forged if 2 people are still willing to tell it back to each other." The phone rested by my hand like a dog that knows the meaning of stay. It did not buzz again yet. Good. Some answers deserve an hour to form inside you before they arrive on a screen. Before evening, I opened the hallway closet and took down the little black book with the stamps. It is lighter now. It still weighs more than it weighs. I placed it on the table near the dolls. I do not know if the system will ever ask for proof more than words, but I do. I like objects that remind the truth how to stand. I set an extra plate at the edge of the table for nothing in particular. Maybe for the part of the past that eats with us when we make new rules kindly. The house approved. It does not clap. It hums. If you have ever lived alone long enough to know what your own quiet sounds like, you know the hum I mean. Evening would come, and with it, a notice or no notice. Either way, we had already moved something that the algorithm could not measure. We had moved who holds the pen when Fierwin's correct checks in our name. I said goodnight to the umbrella. I said hello again to the lemon. I said my name and let it echo just once, then settle. Elena. Doors that open with stories have begun to understand that stories are not ornaments. They are hinges. Hinges do not argue with the door. They help it turn. And somewhere, in a system that thinks it is only a system, a line had been drawn that would soon become a sentence. Layer 3. Awaiting the shared recollection of postage stamp money. A door being polite, waiting for our knock. Evening came with the small courtesies of an ordinary day. The neighbor's radio 2 houses down. A delivery truck that sighed like a tired animal. The streetlight finding its circle on the pavement. I set the little black book of stamps beside the first doll, and left them where they could see each other. 2 artifacts that did not know they were artifacts until we asked them to be. The phone waited without hurry. I did not stare at it. I cleaned the sink with the soft brush that makes metal remember it can shine, and then I sat. When it finally buzzed, it did it like a person clearing a throat before speaking a truth in a room that already knows. I read aloud, because reading aloud anchors a sentence to the table. New notice, layer 3 verified, window open for arrangement. Suggested actions, grocery account to dual control with wider elbow room. Review and right-size 2 subscriptions that exceed use. Schedule clarity check-in in 7 days. I let the air reply. The house has opinions and they are patient. Then I messaged Daniel. Layer 3 opened. Groceries yes. Subscriptions yes. Tonight or morning? Tonight, he wrote. If you have the book out, I want to see it again. I will bring tea on my way. He arrived with a small bag, and a look that had learned something since noon. He placed the bag on the counter, and took the book in his hands, the way you take a baby offered by someone you love, and are afraid to disappoint. He opened to the middle. He paused over a page where the stamps were crooked and the tape had yellowed into honesty. You did not fix them, he said again, half to the page, half to the version of me who had not fixed them. You let them be wrong and useful at the same time. Useful is not the opposite of wrong, I said. Useful is what wrong looks like when love is in the room. We sat at the table with the book between us, the first doll open, the second smiling her almost laugh, the little third waiting her turn like a guest who understands timing. We did not rush to arrange things. We named them first. Groceries, I said. The part of living that people pretend is small because it fits in a bag. Dual control, he answered. A limit that breathes. If either of us says no, it becomes a wall. If both say yes, it becomes a door. Subscriptions, I continued. The kind that keep taking because we forgot to tell them to stop. We cancel the ones that are pretending to be helpful, he said, and keep the two that actually keep lights on inside. We opened the app together. I will not list the numbers. Numbers can humiliate or boast. We asked them to be servants. We set the grocery account to a limit that respected real life in a city where tomatoes cost more on some days, because trucks were late, or bridges decided to have opinions. We removed 2 payments that had grown like ivy, beautiful ones, now blocking windows. Then the small and important proof. I read the line the app offered us, softly, like a clerk who loves her job. Arrangement confirmed. Layer 3 action set. Next prompt available upon request. Year 15. The photo in the brown envelope. We both looked up at the same time. The brown envelope. Memory is a polite guest when it wants to be. It warns the room before it comes in. Do you want to stop here for tonight? I asked. We can let the decisions sit in their chairs and see how they behave after sleep. He reached for his tea. He did not drink yet. He used the warmth like a thought. I want to hear the envelope, he said, almost smiling at his own sentence, because who hears envelopes? But I need to tell you something first. I do not want it to be a surprise later, lurking like a shadow that has learned the layout of the house. He set the cup down and pressed his palms together. He has my hands, but he does not know how often I press mine together to give the air a place to rest. I borrowed money, he said. He did not try to soften the word. Not a lot, enough to make nights noisy. It was for a bridge between paychecks and a repair that could not wait, and a hope that got priced higher when we were not looking. I told myself it was a clever solution, because clever is easier to respect than afraid. I made payments. Then I missed one. Then I lied to myself about why. When I saw the calls on your phone log, I felt the old noise, and I wanted the world to be simple. Scammers, locks, control. But the truth is, the loudest part of the danger was the part I was carrying. He did not cry. He did something more useful. He let his face be unarranged. The arrangement of a face is often the heaviest burden. Thank you for telling me, I said. Not because I enjoy knowing, because secrecy rots wood. I am not asking you to fix it, he said. I am asking you to know where the wind is coming from when I say the word safety too loud. That will make the house steadier, I said. Knowing the wind. We can reinforce the east wall without breaking up the windows. He laughed a little then, surprised by the sound and pleased to hear it. Year 15, he said, inviting the envelope into the room the way you call to a dog who is a little shy. I stood and went to the hall closet. There is a shoebox there that does not know shoes. It knows paper. I brought the box to the table and lifted the lid. Inside, the brown envelope lay where I had put it years ago, wrapped in a sheet of tissue that used to protect a dress, and now protected a moment. I did not open it yet. I let my hands remember the weight. Do you want me to begin? I asked. Or do you want to risk the details? I will try the outline, he said. You will put the furniture in the right rooms. He took a breath. He did not dramatize the breath. He used it. Year 15, he began. We had the school picture money almost saved. I had chosen the background. Blue, because it made my face look like it was telling the truth. The fee was small. It was also not small. The week before photo day, the car needed brakes, and the cat needed medicine, and you needed shoes that did not let rain in. You said we would do the picture next year, and I said nothing. Which was a new skill I was learning because boys are told that silence is a kind of honor, You went to work that afternoon and came home with a brown envelope you pretended had arrived in the mail. You placed it on the table and said, "Open it." Inside was not money. It was a photograph. You had taken it on your lunch break with a camera you borrowed from the coworker who liked to say he captured time. The background was the painted wall in the alley beside the store, the one with blue that was not really blue but worked hard to be. You had printed it at the pharmacy that prints memories while you wait. You put it in the school's envelope with the right paper and a note that said, "Paid in advance." The clerk believed the notes people write with confidence. The photo went in the yearbook. I looked like the boy I actually was, not the one who could afford pictures. He stopped there. Not because he had run out of story, but because the story had reached its own period. I opened the brown envelope. The paper slid out with the sound of things that have been waiting too long in the dark. There he was. Year 15. Hair that did not know what it wanted. Eyes that knew more than they told me. Blue that was not blue. Working hard to be, succeeding. I did not lie, I said. Paid in advance. We prepaid with the hours I traded for the lunch break and the walk to the pharmacy, and the courage to write on a form without being asked. He nodded. Layer 4 will like this, he said. He said it lightly, which is the correct weight for a sentence that might be a door. We waited. Not long. The phone buzzed again, as if the system wanted to prove it could keep up with humans, when humans make it worth the effort. I read the line we needed, and I read it like a lullaby said to a house that has been behaving bravely. Notice. Shared recollection received. Layer 4 available upon request. Advisory. Window for Layer 3 arrangements will close in 6 days. Recommendation. Set clarity check-in. Consider adding a kindness index note. A kindness index, he said, skeptical and curious at the same time. Do banks measure kindness now? Not well, I answered. But they can hold a note about it if we write the note. We can tell the future us to look for something softer than error codes. We set the clarity check-in for next week. A call where no one would argue, because arguing ruins clarity like smoke, ruins clean fabric. Then we talked about the kindness index. We decided it would be a simple sentence in the notes. When fear rises, list one act of care done this week that money did not buy. Not to excuse fear, to make it stand where it belongs, outside the door, announcing itself, instead of sneaking under with the invoices. Then the question that nights always bring when days try to be better. Are you angry with me? He asked. I am grateful, I said. And because that was not enough, I added the rest. I am grateful that your fear told the truth, before it built a city. I am also protective of the part of me that was asked to be small, so your fear could feel big. I will not be small. We will build a city with streets that fit both of us. That is different. He breathed in, and it sounded like permission he had been waiting for from someone he did not know was me. We did not open Layer 4 that night. We put the photo back in the envelope, and the envelope back in the box, and the box back in the closet where disparate truths share a shelf and behave. We cleared the table. He took the bag to the car. At the door, he paused and touched the frame the way you touch a shoulder you are not ready to say goodbye to. I am learning, he said. So am I answered. I am learning that doors can be firm and kind without becoming gates. After he left, I stayed in the doorway for a minute and let the night decide how it wanted to smell. Then I went to the table, put the smallest doll into the second, and stopped there. I did not close the first over them. I left it open, a small amphitheater where truth could speak if it needed to rehearse after midnight. Before bed, I wrote in the blue notebook, arrangement is not surrender. It is choreography. We decide how care moves. The house approved again with its hum that no one hears until they have lived alone long enough to understand that silence can applaud. I washed the cup. I folded the towel the way my husband used to, into threes, because threes are respectful. I touched the brown envelope once on my way past the closet. The way you tap a doorway for luck. Not because you believe in luck, but because doors like to be included. In the dark, the phone lay like a sleeping bell, somewhere inside the branch, on a screen I will never see. The words we had spoken to each other were now lines that could influence other lines. The system had been asked to stop impersonating wisdom and start carrying it. Tomorrow would bring layer 4 if we invited it. Or not. Tomorrow does not care how many layers it contains. Tomorrow cares whether we arrive wearing our names. I said mine, softly, almost to the pillow. Elena. It is a hinge. Hinges do not ask to be seen. They ask to be strong. The door rested. The house rested. The story did not end. It turned its next page by itself, and waited for us to read. In the morning I opened the closet for a sweater, and the brown envelope looked at me the way objects do after they have been named, awake. I left it where it was. Not every memory needs to report for duty 2 days in a row. Tea, lemon, the cat's hallway inspection. The first doll still open on the table. The second smiling. The third waiting with patience that felt like advice. The phone buzzed once, and then behaved. I read the line aloud, to anchor it. New notice. Layer 4 verified. Window open for understanding only. Suggested prompt for next opening. Year 17. The window we did not open. Understanding only. Money would stay where it was. Good. Some doors should teach before they let anyone pass. Daniel came by after dropping the baby at daycare. He stood in the doorway longer than usual, as if respect could be measured in seconds before entering. We sat without hurrying. Layer 4 opened, I said. Understanding only. That feels right, he said. I have been trying to understand why I reached for control instead of a chair. He looked tired in the kind way. Edges softened, not eroded. I set the small recorder I never use in the center of the table. Not to play. Just to remind us that voices can be kept when they need to be. He noticed it, and exhaled. A visible loosening, like a knot choosing to be string again. I want to give you something, I said. I reached to the shelf and took down the blue notebook. I opened near the back and removed a page I had written years ago, and never needed to read until now. It is not a will, I said. It is a won't. I read it simply. If fear takes the shape of protection in this house, we will pause. We will name the fear before we name the fence. We will not let love dress as control and call it duty. We will ask for a story first. He listened without defending himself against what was not an attack. When I finished, he folded his hands. That small posture looked like new ground the rain had just agreed to. I am sorry, he said. Not because I was wrong about danger, because I was wrong about the door. Thank you, I said. I am sorry too. For the part of me that enjoyed being underestimated for one bright second, because it proved I had more power than you saw. That flavor is not good for us. He almost smiled. He reached for the first doll and touched the painted cheek with his thumb. Do you remember year 17? He asked. The window we did not open. I do, I said. It was summer and thunder had opinions. He began, letting the story arrive in outline and trusting me to set the furniture. We were painting the living room. We taped the frames and moved the couch too far. The storm cooled the air and we wanted it inside, but the window was stuck. We tried knives and prayer and patience. We let the cool stay out there and the sweat stay in here. We did not open it. We finished the room with the weather inches away. When it dried, we looked around and loved it. We said, next time we will open the window first. I nodded. Layer 5 is asking us not to let the air stay inches away, I said, to open before we paint. His eyes brightened and did not apologize for it. I can do that, he said. I can say, I am afraid. I want to lock things. Can we open a window first? We let that promise be a promise. Promises do better when they get to sit down before they are asked to walk. Then the small proof. Spoken simply so the room could own it with us. A new line appeared. Layer 5 available. Prompt noted. Year 17. The window we did not open. We did not rush to answer it. We looked at the actual window over the sink, at the light arriving in its respectful stripes. I brought something, he said, almost shy. He placed a folded note on the table. A kindness index entry. For me. For practice. He read it. This week I fixed the neighbor's porch light. I did not charge. I wanted the steps to be safe for her at night. I want to be the kind of man whose hands make light. No numbers, no spreadsheets, just a sentence with a spine. I felt something in me widen that was not a room and not a river, but behaved like both. You are that man, I said. Even when fear tries to write your name. He nodded, not to boast, but to accept the assignment. We did one practical thing. We set a small boundary for phone calls. If an unknown number arrives while one of us is at a register or a door, we let it pass. If it is important, it will leave a message. If fear insists, we call each other before we call the world. A tiny rule, sized for real life. I would like to hear his voice, he said quietly, eyes on the recorder. He did not mean the liaison. He meant the man who left this house a long time ago, and still closes cabinets in my habits. I pressed play. Not a memo. A message from a year when machines made softer beeps. My husband's voice filled the kitchen the way steam does, not in a hurry, everywhere at once. If you are listening, he said, we are fixing something small together. I love the sound of small repairs. Eleanor, teach him what you taught me. Daniel, let her. Nothing was taken. Only moved. We stood in that voice together. 3 people at one table, 2 alive and 1 alive through the way sound can carry a person across years and place him down without dropping him. Daniel wiped his face with his palm and did not call it anything. Thank you, he said to the air, which has always been better at holding gratitude than we give it credit for. We did not open layer 5 that hour. We decided on tomorrow morning, when light is fair and decisions behave. He left with the blue notebook sentence copied on a small card for his wallet. Name the fear before the fence. He kissed my cheek, as if cheeks were still certificates that needed stamping. They are not. They do like to be noticed. After he left, I wrote, forgiveness is not permission for the old shape to return. It is a new shape with room for 2 chairs. The house approved. The cat slept in the stripe of light like a bookmark. I set the doll back on the table and let her keep smiling. I opened the window. It was not stuck. We chose morning because morning is fair. I set 2 chairs by the kitchen window before Daniel arrived. The first doll opened on the table like a small amphitheater that remembers every sentence we said near it. The umbrella leaned by the door for company, though the sky promised no drama. I brewed lemon water. I placed the little black stamp book beside the blue notebook. Not for use, but for courage. Daniel came in with that face people wear when they intend to be brave without audience. He's out. We did not talk about money first. We looked at the window. It stuck then, he said, because we asked it to move after we had already painted the edges. And because we were tired, I said. Tired makes hinges pretend to be walls. We stood together and both put our hands on the frame. No tools, no hurry. I counted to 3 softly, a ritual I learned from Joe's. We lifted a little, pushed a little. It slid. The window did not argue. Cool air walked in and behaved. We sat back down and let the air show us how to breathe. Then I read the line that had arrived at dawn, because proof is a good way to begin, when fear is still deciding its volume. New notice. Layer 5 verified. Understanding window open. Advisory. Consider a care compact. Suggested next prompt. Year 20. The sentence we kept. A care compact, he said, tasting the phrase as if to see if it was edible. Not a contract. Compact. Compact is a promise that fits in a pocket, I said. Small enough to carry even on bad days. We wrote it together, short and human. Care compact. We name the fear before we name the fence. We decide on money only after opening a real window. We keep dual control for the accounts that touch daily life. No secret changes. No emergency that cannot say its name. Once a week, a kindness index entry. What we did that money cannot buy. If either of us says pause, we pause. He copied it to a card for his wallet, and to his phone as a photo. I taped ours inside the cupboard door that swallows things, so it would swallow a good thing for once. We turned to practicals. He told me about the debt with numbers that did not try to humiliate him. I told him what I could help and what I would not. Help. A call to his bank to replace the loud interest with a quiet plan, done on speaker with both of us listening for hidden thorns. Not. Opening my accounts for his wind to pass through. He nodded. Not relief. Agreement. There is a difference that makes houses stand longer. We made the call. He did most of the speaking. I pressed the phone to the table when my hands wanted to grip. We asked for a plan that does not make dignity pay extra. We got a plan that behaves. When it ended, we did not celebrate like winners. We thanked the day for being fair. He looked toward the first doll. Do we ask for the next prompt? He said. Yes, I answered. And because Matryoshka likes manners, I asked it aloud. Layer 6, if you are listening, we are ready for a door that does not look like one. The phone waited a polite number of seconds, and then obliged. I read it. Steady. Notice. Layer 6 available upon request. Prompt, year 20. The sentence we kept. We knew the sentence. We had said it so often the house could say it with us. Nothing was taken. Only moved. The first time my husband wrote it on a plate under a stolen slice of cake, it was a joke. Later it became a practice. When we shifted rooms or roles or rules, we said it to remind ourselves we were not subtracting love. We were redesigning where it sits. Let us tell it together, I said. Short. Honest. Without decoration. Year 20, he began. The year you returned to school for the evening classes. I kept dinner warm. I put the baby to sleep for the first time without you in the house. When you came home and stood in the doorway, afraid you had taken something from us by choosing a new seat at the table, I handed you the plate with the last slice, and that sentence under it. I kept it, I said. And the keeping helped us move 100 things later without breaking them. We did not ask the system to verify it yet. We let the truth sit down and drink water. Rushing makes even true things stumble. Mom, he said after a quiet minute. I want to say the other sentence too, the one I do not like. Say it, I said. I tried to make you small so I could feel big, he said. It did not work. I felt smaller. I am sorry. I accept, I said. And I forgive, which is not a bridge back to the old road. It is a new road with fewer ditches. We both breathed. The window moved a little more, as if the air wanted to be helpful. For the small proof of the hour, I kept it simple, the way our rule asks. A line appeared. Layer 6 prompt acknowledged. Verification optional. When both parties agree the sentence was lived. We agreed. We had lived it. We were living it now. I wrote our kindness index entry for the week on the blue page. We opened the window first. It did not look like much ink. In the room, it was air. He stood to go. At the door he paused. Will you keep the dolls out? He asked. I will, I said. But not as a threat. As furniture. He laughed. Real, small, the kind that pays for itself. Tonight, he said, I will not check the locks twice. I will check the baby once and then kiss my wife twice. That feels like the right math. That is the only math I respect, I said. After he left, I taped the care compact inside the cupboard and then opened the cupboard again to make sure promises can breathe. The cat jumped into the window and approved with her tail. I touched the first dial, then the second, then the little third. A simple ritual to tell the room that patterns can be learned the gentle way. Before noon, the phone stayed quiet. Good. Quiet is how new rules grow roots. I wrote in the blue notebook. Boundaries are doors with manners. They know how to open and how to wait. Then I looked at the camera on the counter, and for a brief moment, imagined taking a picture of this exact table, dolls, book, lemon cup, open window, and mailing it to our future selves with the sentence on the back. Paid in advance. If this part spoke to you, tell me in the comments. Where does care end and control begin in your story? Your line might help someone draw theirs with kindness. The week learned our names. Groceries behaved under 2 keys. The subscriptions stopped pretending to be helpful. The care compact on the cupboard door did not ask for attention. It worked the way good hinges work, quietly. On the 7th morning I woke before the street made its usual noises and stood at the window we had finally opened. The air came in without drama. The first doll sat on the table. The second inside. The little third nested where patience lives. I touched them the way you greet old friends on a day when no one needs rescuing. The phone waited. I made lemon water and let the steam practice forgiveness against my face. When the notice arrived, it did not interrupt. It joined. I read it aloud, so it would belong to the room as much as to me. Final notice for Cycle 1. Matryoshka review complete. Layers at rest. Dual control continues by continue. Next prompts available only upon request. Recommendation. Archive a shared artifact. Layers at rest. A sentence that knew how to sit. I set the cup down and took the small black stamp book from the shelf. On a blank page I taped a single blue postage stamp. The crooked kind. Above it, I wrote our sentence for the week. We opened the window first. I left room under it for a second sentence that had been waiting years to become present tense. Daniel came by after the baby's nap. He had the look of someone who had slept through one cycle of the night without getting up to argue with it. We sat at the table that knows every version of us, and does not prefer one over another. The system says the layers can rest, I said. Then we can rest too, he answered. Not as permission, but as agreement. We decided to archive an artifact, as the notice suggested. Not because a system asked. Because we like the sound of memories when they have somewhere to live that is not only the body. What will it be? He said. We have dolls and umbrellas, and a book that weighs more than paper. I opened the blue notebook to a clean page and drew a small rectangle. Inside it, I wrote, Care compact. Name fear before fence. Open a real window. 2 keys for the door that touches daily life. No secrets. Kindness index, weekly. Pause means pause. We took a picture of that page together, our hands in the edges, so the future would see we were there when the promise was made. I printed the photo on the small home printer that pretends to be an adult device and sometimes is. I slid it into a brown envelope. I wrote on the flap, paid in advance. There was one more thing to do. Not legal. Human. Your bank call, I said. The plan with dignity. How did it live this week? It lived, he said. I did not feel smart. I felt honest. It is better. We made one more small rule. Every time a notice about money arrives, we begin with a kindness index entry before we speak about numbers. Not to decorate the discussion. To place it on a table that can hold it. We wrote this week's entry together. He fixed a porch light. We opened the window. We let the baby sleep while we did not check the locks twice. The sentence looked almost silly on paper. In the room, it strengthened the floor. I wanted a ritual, a small one, the kind that makes a story turn its own last page without closing the book on breath. I brought the lemon cake recipe card from the drawer. The handwriting wavered where my husband's once stood steady. I placed it next to the dolls. "Let us move something," I said. "Not money, not rules, just a slice. From worry to practice." Now we baked. The house approved as it always does when butter translates into light. We ate the first slices on the good plates that refused to apologize for being heavy. We wrapped the third slice for Mrs. Ainsley, whose porch light now tells the night where the steps are. When we were done, I slid the brown envelope with the printed Care compact photo into the shoebox that does not know shoes. I put the small stamp book on top of it. I left the dolls open. Not as a test, not as a warning. As furniture. Daniel stood to leave and then did not. He looked around the room as if to remember how it had looked when we used to be loud in the wrong ways. "I am not afraid right now," he said. He seemed surprised, as if the sentence had arrived from another house and chosen our door. "I know fear will come back. That is what fear does. But when it comes, I will ask it for the story first." "I will too," I said. "And when it does not have one, we will tell it ours." He kissed my cheek, not to sign a contract, but to remind both of us our names still fit. At the door he paused, hand on the frame. "I almost forgot," he said, and smiled. A small bright thing that looked like a window series. He took a marker from his pocket and wrote on the cake container before I could protest. Nothing was taken. Only moved. I left it there. Some sentences retire. This one still works. After he was gone, the house returned to its hum. I washed the cup. I closed the window halfway to remind myself that boundaries can be gentle and still be boundaries. I sat at the table and wrote in the blue notebook. Money is still numbers. But in this house it is also story. And the story belongs to two people who agree to remember. I read the line out loud. The room kept it. Rooms know how. Then the small proof for the end, spoken simply. Final line added. Archive confirmed. Dual control by consent. Matryoshka cycle at rest. I breathed. The dolls did not answer. They did not need to. Their work was never to speak. It was to listen until we could hear ourselves. I tucked the notebook away. I turned off the kitchen light. The stripe from the streetlight still made its faithful path across the table. Hinges held. The door was kind. I do not think stories save us by being loud. I think they save us by holding the door while we decide how to enter. If this story helped you find a gentler boundary, stay with me here. Subscribe so you do not miss the next story that opens a different kind of door. And if someone you love is confusing fear with care, share this video with them. Maybe your story and mine can hold the keys together.